Welcome into episode 39 of Cleveland Sports Realm. And Guardians, if this is what you want us to do, then we'll respond and do it. You want to make it Browns season this early? We're full throat, ready to go.
Yeah, we are. I've got my JOK jersey on. You've joined the mix with the Jerry Jeudy jersey on.
And this is what they want.
This is what they want.
This is what they want. We'll get into all that and so much more. We will talk a little bit about the Browns because they want us to. So we're going to oblige by what Chris Antonetti, Paul Dolan, and Mike Chernoff, the Three Stooges, want us to do.
So starting Browns today.
So no.
Oh.
We are gonna talk about the Three Stooges, and they're just no idea what the hell they're doing.
Okay.
So we'll get there, and then we can talk about the fourth stooge who decided he wanted to gamble and throw away his career. So a lot to get to tonight.
As we record Wednesday evening.
Yes, this is Wednesday evening here, and so we are recording. So let's get a couple housekeeping notes out of the way, okay? Right now, as we record, the Guardians are currently leading 3-0. That, I think, is not that big of a deal. Still going to put it out there. The other thing, as we record this, we are 21 hours away from the deadline.
What time is the deadline?
6 p.m.
6 o'clock. So we're actually 22 hours.
Okay, 22 hours away from the deadline. So obviously, if something comes in, then we'll react live, and we could derail our whole plan we have here for you.
Yeah, it's true.
If something comes in Guardians related. And then I think that's all the housekeeping notes I have.
Yeah, I think so, right?
I wanted to get out of the way.
We can dive right into these guards.
Yeah, absolutely. So where do you want to start with these losers?
I think we should absolutely start with the news, that dropped on Monday. Emmanuel Clase now also on paid leave until the end of August. Still confuses me. We touched on it last week about the extended deadline that they gave Luis Ortiz, and still confuses me why there hasn't really been a punishment that's been given. Because if you told me to, not go to work and I'm still going to pay you for the time that you would have been there, I wouldn't really consider that too much of a punishment.
Yeah, and what I find interesting about that is it's paid leave. Look, we know how big of penny pinchers the Guardians are, so what I am interested about, and Zach Meisel, who I think covers the team better than anyone in town, I was actually telling you that off the air yesterday. Someone had asked him in his most recent Q&A on The Athletic, who pays this paid leave? Is it Major League Baseball or is it the Guardians? And Zach said, I'm digging to find that out. I have been unable to get to the bottom of it yet. And that is interesting because
you would think it was you would think it would be the Guardians.
You would, but if the Guardians could get out of paying someone something, they're always going to do that.
Well, sure, right. But yeah, I mean, that would be the rule of baseball, though. That wouldn't be the Guardians, I don't think, necessarily looking for a loophole out of that money.
So if it is the Guardians, and let's go with the belief that it is.
Yeah.
You now have a low revenue. Your revenue is actually not as low as you make it out to be. You have a low payroll, 25th in the league, as we've gone over many times, of $100 million. There is $36 million, according to Sport Track, of that is not playing in games for the Guardians right now, whether that's injuries, whether that's paid leave for gambling.
Yeah, because you're looking at Bieber, Clase, Ortiz obviously doesn't take up a ton of that.
Stefan is at $2.5 million.
Stefan. That's
and he's point. Actually
Lane Thomas probably.
Lane Thomas is $8 million.
Yeah, okay.
There's a lot.
Yeah, so you're already racking that up pretty quickly. We've only named really 4 significant players.
Right. Obviously Bieber's $10 million of that. He's the biggest chunk of that.
Right.
But for a team that is so hell-bent on penny pinching, that's got to really kill them that all that money's on the inactive list, if you will. And Kevin, let's talk about this Class A thing, like you said. Yeah. If this is the case, and I'm still of the innocent until proven guilty.
Sure.
If this is the case, I don't know how that he's ever going to throw a pitch in the Major League Baseball again, or Ortiz. If you're betting on your own pitches, it's in the rule book. It is a lifetime ban.
Yeah, as it should be, in my opinion.
And I agree
maybe this explains the poor October that Clase had almost a year ago now.
Now I know a lot of people were going to that, and I think it's someone who, even if I wanted to play devil's advocate to that, how could I? Because once you lose trust in a fan base, in a front office, most importantly, more than anything, in your own guys in the clubhouse, You don't get that back.
No, and again, we're speculating because nobody's been obviously, proven guilty of doing any wrongdoing as of yet. But if it does come out that's what was happening, whether it was pitches that were flagged this year, you're going to look back at a lot of things that happened over the last few years since gambling's been legalized in the state of Ohio and wonder what about the home run pitches that Clase was giving up randomly. But again, we also look at that season last year, I should say, where he finished with the regular season with like a 1.1 ERA.
Less than that, he gave up 6 runs the entire.
Yeah, no, it was unbelievable. So at that point, how can you really say, this guy is for sure betting against his own pitches?
And I don't think, and listen, like I said, I it's really hard for me to sit here and challenge you on that. I mean, I probably could, based off the fact that those were not bad pitches to Judge and Stanton that he hit out, in that, particularly in that Yankees. It wasn't a terrible pitch to Kerry Carpenter. What I think is probably more looking at getting flagged is Talking Baseball tweeted a video of him just spiking first pitches routinely this year. And obviously, it comes to one of those things where if you're going to, make sure, you bet, let's say, who knows, $100,000 that you're going to throw a ball, you're going to make sure that it's something that no one's even going to, the worst of hitters aren't going to attempt to swing at.
It wouldn't be a slider outside of the zone to Javi Baez.
No.
Right.
I mean, these pitches are nowhere near the zone. So it sucks in multiple different ways because, in my opinion, call me biased, Clase last year put together the best season by a closer ever, not named Mariano Rivera.
Yeah. And I think what stings a lot about this too is that obviously we're approaching the trade deadline, and we can get into more conversations about that after we finish these points. But what Johan Duran went for, a couple very good prospects that go over to Minnesota now.
What Helsley just went for,
and
right
Helsley
before
just
we got on the air.
Yeah, right before we got on the air, and you're looking at that thinking that the Guardians are obviously going to be selling, and like I said, we'll get to that in a few minutes. But obviously, that would have been nice to know of beforehand.
Yeah, and I think, let's break this all down to how it happened. So I trust Zach Meisel implicitly. I've already mentioned that once. I'll mention it again. I'll probably mention it a third time later on tonight. Zach Meisel wrote a great story on this. So what ultimately happened was the Guardians they had not heard anything from the league office, but, through sources of their own, they had started to hear, Clase might be getting flagged here soon. You better watch out. But they were like, well, hey, until they officially do something, why should we stop pitching him? He's our best reliever.
Right.
Clearly. And the other thing about that's interesting is I know a lot of people are saying, well, Clase is having a bad year. He's really not. I mean, if you look at the numbers since May 10, he had a 1.10 ERA.
Compared to last year, which he was never going to repeat.
No, he's having a fine year. And hands down, bar none, in the entire franchise this history, God, I can't talk tonight.
History of this franchise.
Yes, in the entire history of this franchise, they've never had a closer remotely that good ever. Like, he is, bar none, the best closer in the franchise's history. He was a leader on that pitching staff. There's a lot of things they lost.
And Cody Allen and Chris Perez were solid, but they weren't this guy.
No. He's the all-time saves leader, all that. So Chris Antonetti's coming back from Tom Hamilton's, Hall of Fame induction, and congratulations to Hammy, and we'll touch on that in odds and ends a little bit too. I actually had the opportunity to listen to his entire speech today. What a heck of a speech! But Chris Antonetti's coming back from Cooperstown, and he gets a call from Major League Baseball. Hey, we're going to put Clase on the list. So Chris Antonetti doesn't do anything. Vogt pitches him, twice on Saturday, warms him up on Sunday, which was odd. They were down by 3 runs. I mean, I'm watching that game, and I'm like, what are they warming up Clase for? I think they were trying to use him everything they could have gotten out of him.
Yeah.
So then Antonetti calls in Vogt and the coaching staff on Monday. They call in the players in the clubhouse. They have a team meeting. And supposedly, according to Meisel, when Ortiz got paid on this administrative leave or whatever the heck you want to call it, it's like, okay, well, that sucks. We lost a starting pitcher or whatever. Guys were angry about this one. That's what Meisel said. There was a lot of anger in that clubhouse. And I can understand that because Ortiz First year here, yeah, he's a decent pitcher, but this is one of your top three probably players on the roster, position player or pitcher.
I mean, he's been one of the faces of this franchise for the last 3-4 years.
Exactly. This is a guy who's been here since 2021. He's actually been here since 20. He didn't pitch in 20 though because he was suspended for performance enhancing drugs.
Yeah, that's a good point.
So, whether that was going to come back or not, this was a guy who was probably on a Hall of Fame path. He threw that all away. To your point, whether they were going to move him or not, I don't think we'll ever really know, obviously. Now, Meisel claims that they were going to, they were not going to move him, but they were at least listening, engaging offers, seeing if they got basically, quote, a Godfather offer, they would have done it. And I think they would have, considering what we saw today that relievers got moved for. I also am the opinion, I personally wouldn't have moved him at all because he's super, super cost affordable. What's the market value of a closer? $20 million for the best? You had him at $5 million this year.
I think that also could drive up his price, though, how affordable he is.
It could. $7 million next year, then $10 million and $10 million for club options. So you had him for
under team control for the next 3-4 years.
3.5 years. Okay. So why and what sickens me, and I'll touch on it a little bit, is this organization has this fan base so brainwashed.
I don't think they do anymore.
Maybe not, but they did for a long time that when somebody's getting towards the end and their price, Clase is getting expensive. No, the hell he's not. He's not getting expensive at all. He's priced under market value. You don't need to trade him. You see these idiots on Twitter. Well, they have to trade him because, the price is getting expensive and they have Cade Smith. Yeah, morons. How well did that work out on Monday night with Cade Smith as your closer? And that's nothing against Cade. He's a good kid. He's a good pitcher. But this idea of anytime that someone's good, you have to move them really bothers me. And before I sidetracked myself, obviously, Chris Antonetti had heard this on Sunday and then told all the other teams that they were engaging with Clase about, shooting back and forth offers. He's off the table. He's untouchable. And very smart move by them because obviously, let's say you do trade him and this comes out on Monday. No one in Major League Baseball, the 29 other teams, maybe the Rockies because they're dumb enough, is ever doing business with you again. So
yeah, no, I agree. It just goes. You wanna establish the trust, and you never want to make an obvious deceiving move if you're a manager. I mean, you would obviously.
General manager, yeah.
Yeah. What did I say?
Manager. Yeah, same.
Okay, yeah, same deal. I mean, you always want to have that trust built because you want teams coming back and wanting to make deals. Now, of course, you want to try to win the deals, but you want to do it in good faith.
Right.
I think that's the overall mission when you're making these deals. You don't want to fleece somebody too much to where they're scared to come back to you.
Right. And whether they would have moved him or not. I was under the impression you shouldn't move him because, okay, you have your best two bullpen assets were Cade Smith and Emmanuel Clase. This idea that, you can get rid of one and the other one could fill. Why not keep both if he's that cheap? And listen, that's the thing that this goes back to the whole overarching thing with this whole team. Nobody knows what the plan is, and we haven't known what the plan is for years because. Okay, maybe I could get on board if you decide you're going into a full-fledged rebuild, but there's no need to do that. You just come off an ALCS. So this idea that you had to move them, we don't have the record. Look, I've come on here and bitched plenty about the team this year, pardon my French, and whatnot, and this and that. At the end of the day, if this holds up against the Rockies tonight, they're going to be 500. Okay, so at the end of the day, they're not operating like the Colorado Rockies or the Pittsburgh Pirates where, it's obvious to sell off your veterans and your assets because you stink. They're coming off being a Final Four team in baseball. They don't stink. The idea that they'd even consider moving them to me is just ludicrous, Kevin. I don't get it, and I can't get on that side.
Talking about Clase?
Yes.
Yeah, well, you know what? I will say I actually would kind of be in favor of Clase I would have been in favor of a Clase trade before all of this news came out. Just with the slip that we saw in the playoffs and the rough start that he had at the beginning of the year. Now, like you said, Jerome, since May, he's had like a 1.1 ERA. He's been absolutely fantastic. But again, we talked about this last week a lot, and you just brought it up again. The team, they're a team that has no mission. They have no plans of what they want to do moving forward. And I think Jose did kind of, I do think he kind of, what's the word I'm looking for?
Derailed.
They kind of derailed whatever plan that this team might have had going forward. You know, we know that they wanted to trade Jose. We know that they obviously shipped off Naylor. We know that they shipped off Jimenez, and obviously they're looking to ship off Kwan now. You ship off Kwan and Clase, hypothetically, before this happens, and then all you're left is Jose Ramirez in a AAA squad. It's absolutely absurd what this has done. You trade Kwan, you trade Clase, and then you might as well trade Jose at that point, seriously. But going back to the whole Cade Smith point of him becoming the closer, I'm still not going to fault any fans for thinking that that's possible, because I do think Cade Smith's a fantastic reliever, and I think he can be a good closer in time. Obviously, he stepped into the role. It's kind of a small sample size for him. One time after the suspension, him giving that opportunity and him obviously blowing that save op. But I still think he can develop into that role, and we don't know what Clase is going to be anywhere else.
No, but I was just of the opinion, you know, look, and that's where I just wish that we can get some truth serum in these guys instead of Chris Antonetti's favorite thing. Well, we're preparing for the present and the future. You're not preparing for either of them. You have no idea what you're doing. Because, look, the thing that drives me nuts is the self-sabotage, Kevin. You were Final Four last year. You were up there with the three highest payrolls in baseball at 25. So there is something there. There's some juice left to squeeze, and you decided to make the cupboard bare, and you were going to bear it even more. I don't get the idea of that.
But also, we can look back on this team, and you can actually vouch for me in this. About 3 years ago, you know, Tribe's still a decent baseball team, and I was very much in favor of trading Shane Bieber. And now we're coming up. There's a report today that the Tribe's actively looking to shop or to sell Shane Bieber, and it's probably not going to be for the haul that we would have got 3 years ago. But I do feel like at some points, not necessarily at their peak, but maybe a year after their absolute peak, I think is the time to sell these players, because they're only going to start dropping off a little bit more and more. So I think it's almost like you don't want to sell at the very pinnacle of their value because you want them during that span, but you still want to get something of value for them before they slip entirely.
Yeah, I can understand that. But it's just, it goes back to the whole overarching theme. Look, I'm not asking them, and we've talked about this ad nauseum, so I hate even going down this road. I'm not asking you to extend every single player.
Right.
But there's certain guys that it just makes sense. And this leads us into the Kwan thing. And I know I made a joke about it at the beginning of the show. You trade this guy, good luck, because you're going to have a lot of blue and green seats staring at you in August and September. What's the draw? What's the idea? You know, this is, look, it's almost like they signed Jose to an extension and they want a lifetime pass to just be cheap for an eternity now. Okay, great, you signed Jose to an extension, but what good does that do if you do not put anything around the poor guy?
No, 100%.
And that's where I am just fit to be tied with the entire idea of trading Steven Kwan. And you think, and those three stooges, I'm talking to Paul, Chris, and Mike, you know, the three stooges down there think that they sit there and cry constantly. All we ever hear, well, people support the Browns blindly. We don't get what the Browns get. Nobody cares about us like the Browns, because you do crap like this.
Yeah.
Where Mark Feinstein today said they are actively trying to move Steven Kwan. Look, I'm not going to have an issue if you gauge and see what's out there, but actively
receiving calls,
yes,
like taking calls and seeing what you could potentially get, sure.
But actively moving him, it comes back down to what haunts this organization since the year 2000 with that fraudulent family. The Dolans bought it. Once again, it comes down to that. They are freaking out because his arbitration number is going to go probably to 8 or 9 million next year, and the year after that to 12 or 15 million. Guess what?
So still very affordable for a Gold Glove left fielder that hits 300.
That is nothing. And also, again, it goes back to what is your plan here? You're coming off an ALCS. You got 3 hitters in your lineup, and now you're going to cut it down to 2. And Manzardo, look, Kwan's the only other one who's certified stud besides Ramirez. We're seeing a lot of flashes from Angel. We're seeing flashes from Kyle. And Kyle's at the point where I'd almost certify him as a third legit hitter in the lineup. Like, he's had that good of a year when he's gotten his
I've always liked Manzardo too, and I love his approach at the dish. And of course, as we're recording this Wednesday night, it's a left-handed pitcher, and Kyle Manzardo is coming off a 2 home run performance, and he's not in the lineup.
Right, he's not in the lineup. And then David Fry,
manager of the year.
David Fry hit a 2-run homer to begin the game tonight. So Vogt looked like a genius, and then now he's pinch hitting Manzardo as we speak for Fry. So what are they just that allergic to offense? You hit a home run and your ass is hitting the bench. I don't.
Yeah, I don't know.
It's disgrace. But
well, I think the ironic part about this whole Steven Kwan thing, and even the Shane Bieber thing, if you want to include him in this mix, even though Kwan's the hot name right now, is that the Guardians. We talked about buy, sell, or hold last week. And
we did.
We talked about buy, sell, or hold, and what the Guardians are going to do is what the Dolans should be doing, and that's sell, sell, sell.
That's a great line. Great job out of you.
Thanks.
It's you sit there and you cry, well, nobody cares about us. Nobody pays attention to us. And how can you expect when you have 2 household position player names and you're going to ship one of them off and they can be here for a very, very affordable price for 2 more years? And look, again, I'm not asking you to extend every single person, but when a guy like Steven Kwan comes up, hell yeah. And if you don't extend him, I'm gonna roast you for it. I'm gonna kill you for it, and you deserve every single bit of hate you are getting right now online, because there is 0 reason to be actively moving this guy. I don't care. Oh, we're going to get great. We're going to get a bunch of 18-year-olds. And so what's the timeline? What's the timeline, guys? 2035? You haven't won a World Series since 1948. They have no ambition. Nothing.
No, they don't. They don't. Well, you're irate about this.
I mean,
I'm not.
pissed.
Listen, I'm not happy. I'm not happy about this news either, because like we said, recording Wednesday evening, there's a very high probability 24 hours from now, and we talked about this off the air. We're giving it about a 20 to 30% chance that Kwan is a Cleveland Guardian past 6 p.m. on Thursday.
It's not high at all.
We don't think it's high at all. But Jerome, I do want to interrupt you really quick. Just got this no trade news at all, but very interesting news to keep an eye on. Shohei Ohtani just threw 6 straight balls, missing badly on all of them, and is now leaving the game with the trainer.
Oh, wow.
So that's something to keep an eye on, especially with the Dodgers looming and being one of those teams that we're looking at Steven Kwan. That's somebody they could almost place. You can plug one of your corner outfielders in now at DH and have Kwan in one of the corner outfield spots, if that's it, because they were reported for Steven Kwan. That's a very interesting development in the MLB a day before the trade deadline.
Absolutely. That's very interesting. I am glad you pointed that out, because look, they're probably going to get a bunch of lottery tickets from the Dodgers for Steven Kwan. Is probably going to be a Dodger. He's probably going to be a Met. It's just, and that's why. And listen, I know I got a little bit out of control there, but you have to. And it's because stuff like this over and over and over again, and you have a fan base, and I get it. And people, the apologists, and you're right about that. The group is dwindling. There used to be a lot more. Well, they win all the time, and
that was my argument.
Yeah,
that was my argument as of maybe 2 years ago.
Right.
Every move, every time they cut salary, every time whatever, you would obviously be either. I mean, there were some times that you obviously saw it. You were pretty unbiased when it came to your opinion there. It wasn't always hating on the Dolans.
Right.
But just about 90 to 95% of the time, I would say, hey, until they prove me wrong, I'm not going to. And we've talked about that before. Their last 3 to 5 years haven't been good to them when it's been coming to making deals, free agency or via trades. Honestly, they've been pretty bad at both. So I always had that blind faith in them. And now, the Dolan apologists, as you said, Jerome, are dwindling. Yeah, it's
because
it's weird because they are a worse team. You know, I've always talked about being too high or never get too high, never get too low, and I still maintain that. But they, you know, looking at this season as a whole, over 100 games in now, they are a worse team than their record shows clearly. Like they are. The offense isn't there. And you and I were watching it. Was it Monday night? This was after the Class A news dropped. Monday night that we're facing the Rockies in a game that you said was a must-win game, and it probably was. We're down 3-0 in the 6th inning. You know, you and I are watching the game. It did get pretty late because of that rain delay. And Bo Naylor comes out of the woodwork with a 3-run home run out of absolute nowhere to tie the game. And then the Rockies proceed to just throw the ball around the entire inning, and we get 2 more runs out of it. And I looked you straight in the face, and I said, bad teams find ways to lose games.
Yep.
And they do. And guess what the Guardians proceeded to do that night? They found a way to lose that baseball game when the Rockies gave it to them on a silver platter.
Yep.
That's when I woke up, because I did fall asleep watching the game. It was a late start. When I woke up and saw that Cade Smith had blown it and that we had lost by a couple runs, it wasn't even a one-run game. They lost by a few runs that game. That pretty much that summed up the season being over for me, in my opinion, because I went immediately back on my statement, claiming the Rockies were the bad team that go out and blow games,
right.
And then the Guardians proceeded to do it in the same exact very game.
And the fact is they're 500, and that's why I think, you know, I did get so angry right there, because we look at it and it's like, well, how the hell are they 500? But then on the same token, it's like they're 500 and they're having a fire sale like they are the Rockies, or they plan to. And it's like, look, do I think that they would do anything if they got to the playoffs? No, but Bieber's not that expensive. Why not let him finish? Like, is really
it's a player option,
right? And then next year it's a player option that
he's probably going to decline.
He's probably going to decline, but then guess what? You can give him the qualifying offer for $21 million, and if you don't, you get a draft pick anyway. So why not keep him? Why not try to make a push? They are literally acting like they are awful, point. And that's why I did get so angry, and I did yell, and then that's the other thing too. Like the apologists, like I saw somebody the other day was like, yesterday tweeted, you know, if they trade Kwan, I'm done. Like, this is it. You know, I'm not going to. And some other account, one of the few left of Paul's army, was out there in full force and was like, you must just hate winning baseball because they constantly produce that. And it's like, yes, they do. And I understand. Look, they have given us plenty of great memories. Out of all 3 teams in our childhood, collectively, they've probably given us the most.
They've given us the most consistent.
Right. And you know, we can both say that being 28 years old. And, you know, and you talk to people who were there for the 90s teams and all that. But the bottom line is all of this is nice, and it's all feathers in their cap. And yes, to a certain degree, they should be praised for all of it. But the bottom line is, what is the goal? Because you haven't gotten that end trophy since 1948.
No,
you have the longest team drought in North American sports. And the way you're operating right now with forcibly trying to move Steven Kwan, and you wanted to, you know, trying to move Clase and moving Bieber, and Bieber's probably good as gone, and whoever the hell else you want to fire sale, it's like, is there ever an end in sight? Like, what do they plan? Like, well, they just plan on playing with lottery. Like, it's like they go there every day and they just scratch $5 scratch offs and hope one day they hit for 500,000.
Well, this is the thing for me too, Jerome, and I want to give you your credit on this because you were the one that brought this up to me last night. The game plan for the Guardians right now is, you know, in the next couple of years, you know, we've all heard that Blitzer's going to be the one that takes over. Blitzer's going to take over the team. He's going to spend the money. He's going to whatever. You know, if Paul Dolan, and like I said, I'm going to give you your flowers here because you were the one that brought up this point. If Paul Dolan is not going to be here in 2 years, why are you not handing out this money? And then you can leave with like, oh, you know, he kept Steven Kwan, he kept Shane Bieber, now you're leaving. You're going to leave in 2 years by sending out, you know, the heart of this team, basically. Right,
and it's a point you brought up earlier, and eventually, like, I go to look at Jose Ramirez, and I think of that meme from the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air where Will's looking around, the room's all empty.
Yeah.
Like, that's going to be Jose probably tomorrow night. Like, what do I have? I have David Fry, who may come back next year and be, like, decent. You know, he's starting to show a little bit of signs. Like, I mean, I don't see any way that Carlos Santana probably doesn't call it quits after this year. Like, Jose's going to be looking around and like, okay, cool, it's me and a bunch of Columbus. Like, how is that fair to him? And everything he's done for you, it's just so wrong. It's so wrong on so many levels. And
well, then let him ask for a trade then. You know, we talked about it a couple episodes ago that it was probably in the Tribe's best interest and his best interest to go their separate ways. He gets his bag. He goes to a contender. The Guardians clear their cap, clear their payroll.
Yeah, I see all that, but I also see, like, you know, it's just sickening to me because we can sit here and talk about that, and it's not like we're talking about the Rockies where it's been years and years of bad baseball, or like it's the Pirates where it's been years and years of bad baseball. And I know I keep using those two teams, but they're like the glaring examples out there. Like, this is a team that was hanging out with the Los Angeles Dodgers, New York Mets, and New York Yankees as one of the Final Four last year, and they've completely self-sabotaged themselves and some of their loyal, stupid-ass fans into believing that that they have to go into a rebuild. And it all comes back to the godforsaken owner and the money. And that's the point, Kevin. It's not your money. It's not going to be your money. So the players don't care. They just want the money. So, Paul, if you're so hell-bent, backload a Steven Kwan extension. Backload the shit out of it. You know, I don't get it. Like, this is not someone you have to, like, look, if it was like where the, and I still don't give them, I still get mad about the Lindor thing, but it's more understandable when he had 1 year left and it's like, okay, we know we're so far apart on terms. Like,
you got to move him.
There's no choice, but that one still hurt. That one still stabbed me right in the heart. But this one, Kevin, I don't see the logic behind it.
Let me ask you this, Jerome, because I know you've gone on record this year, within the last 2 weeks, saying that you're not going to pay to go to another Guardians game the entire year. It's got to be free tickets for you in order to go.
And I have maintained that.
Yes, you have. You have. So this is my question to you. If they trade Kwan, will you go at all the rest of the year?
I don't know.
Really?
I don't know. I mean, unless I'm thinking, and this is just me, maybe.
Like you get a buffet style.
Yeah, this is me talking emotionally right now. If someone, maybe offered me Discount Drug Mart Club with a buffet or maybe a suite, right. Sure, I might go. But I don't know if just, I don't know. And that's something that I'm too an emotional, right? I'm too emotional right now to answer because obviously I've been very high strung this podcast, but it all comes from a place of love and care, man.
Of course.
And the same way for you. We care so much. Look, if we didn't care about these teams, we wouldn't sit here and do this every week. We wouldn't make Derek work hard every week,
Yeah.
And and that's what bothers me is like, and we've gone over this comparison 100 times, but they sit there and they wonder why. They sit there on the corner of Carnegie and Ontario and twiddle their thumbs and say, well, why do people endlessly support the Browns to the ends of the earth? Well, one, and this is something they can't control. It's a football town. It's a football town, okay? Yeah. And that part, they've learned to accept a little bit more over there. But two, because, they swing and miss constantly and they strike out constantly. But, man, do they die trying over there on the lakefront.
Yeah,
they try everything. They try everything and anything. None of it works ever.
No.
But they try it all.
Yeah.
And
they have tried just about everything.
And when people start to notice that. And, there are people in this town who I know, personally, who will not go to the corner of Carnegie and Ontario, and it's because of the lack of trying. And they say, if the owners don't care, then why should I?
Yeah, I think that's a fair point, too, honestly. I mean, I can't fault anybody for having that mindset.
No, and in the same way that I know there's people who won't go to the lakefront, and they won't go to Browns games because, if they can't figure it out, then why should I make the effort for them? And I can understand that side of the coin, too. And the whole thing just leads me to a point of where we're at a total frustration boiling point, and if they trade Kwan, and Chris Rose, and I want to give him credit for this because I didn't come up with this, but it's an excellent point. He was on 92 through the fan today, and he goes, if you trade Kwan, he goes, the second that ball kicks off for the Browns preseason next Friday, good luck getting anybody to watch and anybody to show up.
Yeah, I think that's a fair point.
And it's a fair point because people are going to be so fit to be tied. And the sad thing is those guys in the clubhouse don't deserve it because, yeah, they've sucked most of the year, but they also are going to be 500 here in a couple innings.
Well, I think it's going to be interesting to see what happens with Santana because that was the guy that we talked about last week that we thought was the most obvious candidate to get moved. And I had read a report today, and I'm blanking on who it was from, that there's a possibility that he gets DFA'd. Now, I don't know how true that is. I don't know how realistic that is, but if this is something where this organization wants to go full on, let's bring up Kafis, see what he's got, Manzardo DH, just go full youth and just kind of see what sticks. Like, I could see them potentially doing that if they have no takers on Carlos.
And I love Carlos. I've said it, I think I say it every single week we do this thing. He's my favorite baseball player of all time. God love him. I don't know who's taking him.
Yeah, I don't know either.
I mean, maybe, and if you trade Carlos, I saw somebody tweet the other day, maybe you'll get like an IHOP gift card. Like, I don't know what your return would be. I also think what they probably should do, in fairness to him, is, he is absolutely going to be a Cleveland Indians Guardians Hall of Famer. Like, we've talked about that extensively. If your best bet at this point would probably be like, hey, if they decide to go full on rebuild, they need to grow a pair of balls and bring Carlos in the office and have an honest conversation with him and say, hey, look, we're either going to DFA you or you're welcome to stay the rest of the year, but your at-bats and playing time has to be decreased a little bit. And knowing the good teammate that Carlos Santana is, I could see him, if they have that conversation with him, maybe him being willing to do that. But I don't know. He's also a guy who's prided himself his entire career on playing every day. So who knows? I don't know how that conversation would go, but I think that the Three Stooges, Paul, Chris, and Mike, owe that to Carlos.
Yeah, I think a conversation's absolutely got to be had if that is the decision that they end up coming to, for sure.
So, I mean, I don't know. Any news? any news over there, Jeff? Kevin Passan?
No. Well, let me check real quick. I didn't see anything. No, it doesn't look like anything's really happened since the Helsley deal from the Cardinals to the Mets. Yeah, doesn't look like anything's
Kwan's
happened
still in
so
the
far.
game.
That's my sources haven't texted me anything yet. So looks like Kwan's still a Guardian as we speak currently.
All right. Well, if they trade Kwan, this is what everybody's going to be talking about. So let's get to it. It's Browns training camp. People were talking about that even in the current juncture. Sad news out of Browns training camp. The negativity has to continue, unfortunately. Martin Emerson.
Shohei Ohtani stepping out onto the on-deck circle to hit. So maybe it's not so serious from what I mentioned earlier. Sorry, not to completely derail, but maybe it's not as serious as it looks.
If he's stepping, that's a good sign.
Okay.
Maybe Shohei Ohtani, 6 straight pitches outside. Maybe it wasn't the interpreter after all, and maybe it was.
Yeah, I wonder if they're going to flag Ohtani.
No chance. I mean, we can go into that in another episode when we have more time, but let's just say I think baseball did not want to lose its most marketable asset.
Probably not.
They were protecting him at all costs.
Right. But yes, Browns talk.
Yeah, let's get to the Browns. Disappointing, sad news out of there. MJ Emerson in a contract year.
Yeah.
And you hate to see any guy, just like actually to go back to the baseball, Lane Thomas, you hate to see any guy
in contract years.
Injuries in their contract year. Goes down on a non-contact, blows his Achilles out at training camp yesterday.
Yeah, you got to be done for the year.
Absolutely will be done for the year. I mean, they placed him on season-ending IR today. Stinks for the team, too, because he's probably your number 2. Now Newsom moves outside, and I would assume Cameron Mitchell's your nickel.
And Cam Mitchell's... I don't want to discredit him at all. He's actually put some pretty good reps together over the last couple of years. I know 5th rounder out of Northwestern, and he actually went to school with Greg Newsom for, I want to say, a year, maybe 2 years. So kind of interesting dynamic there. But I think he'll slide in okay into the nickel spot.
Yeah. Yeah, it still stinks, though, because,
yeah, of course.
I mean, this is a guy who's probably going to have a nice bounce back here. I mean, I have no inclination. This is just my personal gut feeling. I feel like contract year, he was looking to get paid. He sees how DBs get paid. Now, I think he could have had a big year.
I do too, and this is a guy who put together his rookie and second year were very good. He really established himself as that solid number 2 opposite of Denzel Ward, and then last year, obviously, he took a step back a little bit. He wasn't nearly as effective when being targeted, so I was looking forward, like you said, Jerome, contract year. I feel like a lot of guys, like you said, they want to hunt for those contracts. They play better in their contract years. I was really looking forward to seeing lockdown on the lake, but
nah, not going to happen. And
hopefully it will, just with a different trio.
Maybe this is the Browns give him like a 1-year, $5 million prove-it deal next year, then give him an opportunity to go make that big money.
Yeah, I think it might even be a little bit more than that, like even in maybe even closer to 10, like 8-9 million. Just with obviously coming off a very serious injury, but also you're still heading right into the middle of your prime. He's gonna be age 25, 26 next offseason, so I think that's something that you definitely are going to be paying probably closer to 10 for. But yeah, you still give him that opportunity to go out there and maybe get that 4 or 5 year, $100 million contract. Probably wouldn't be that high for Martin Emerson, but you get the point.
Well, and the other thing with that is you can easily do that kind of deal next year. And one more point I wanted to make on that is, Andrew Berry, we've tarnished him for a lot of draft picks, and he certainly deserves a lot of it. A lot of the wrath we've given him on this podcast. But that was one pick I think he did well on as a third-round corner.
Yeah, I think so too. Absolutely. I think that's probably. I mean, you look back, that's definitely been his best third-round pick for sure. I was gonna say best day 2 pick, but I think JOK or Grant Delpit might even clear that.
Those would absolutely trump that. Speaking of Grant Delpit, I heard a very interesting story that there's a good chance, and it was written by, forgive me, I forget the guy's name who wrote the story, but excellent piece on Delpit, how Myles Garrett is a great player, but not a great leader. We've discussed that on this podcast.
Yeah.
He's more of a lead example guy, but you need that verbal leader. And that really has been Grant Delpit. It was last year, and it's going to be again this year. And there's a chance that Grant Delpit might wear a C. And
sweet.
I was reading this story, and obviously the Browns stunk last year. We've gone over that ad nauseum. But Grant Delpit was the guy who wrote the story, had a press pass for the last game of the year, and he said, I was in the locker room, and he goes, you got a 3-13 team playing the string out. He goes, and a lot of these guys are kind of loafing around before the game. He goes, and Delpit comes in there, and he was the guy who huddled up the whole team and said, hey, look, you guys are playing for the people back in Cleveland. You're playing for the name on the front of the jersey, the Browns. He goes, and you're playing for yourselves. He goes, because guess what? He goes, any piece of tape you put out there, he goes, this is going to be your most recent piece of film. NFL executives, coaches, they're looking at this. So go play for yourself. The guy next, he was the one who got the Browns to play somewhat well, and they did for a while in that last game. Then Bailey Zappi just gave him no chance. But beside the point, that's not the point that the Browns ended up losing. They did that a bunch last year. That's irrelevant. The point of the story is Grant Delpit is someone, if he can step up into that leadership role, that's a huge deal for the Browns because they do lack that vocal leader.
Yeah, I would absolutely say. And Grant Delpit's been also a very good player for this team, and I think he was one of those big-time leaders on that LSU team that won the national championship too. So I don't think leading's anything new to Grant Delpit, but it is nice to know that there is that vocal leader on that defense. And going back to that, what your most recent game is, like your most recent film that you're going to put out for other teams. I remember there was a clip I saw of Shelby Harris, telling that to the younger guys.
Yeah.
He goes, hey, listen, we might be, 2-10 at the time, whatever it was or whatever. But he goes, hey, listen, I'm playing for a contract. You're on a 1-year deal. You're playing for a contract. You better be busting your ass, or else there's going to be teams going, I don't want this dude loafing if we're only down 3 points in the fourth quarter. So you better be giving it your all. And I think it's so easy to say that, but it's also so easy when you're actually watching the games to tell, like, oh yeah, they're definitely a 3-10 football team, and that dude's out there loafing.
Yeah, but then and you're 100% right with everything you just said there. And in contrary, it's real easy to tell even on the television screen. Wow, they suck, but that guy has given his everything for this awful team. And if we notice that as fans, every scout, every general manager, assistant general manager, coaching staff, the whole 9 yards, they definitely picked that stuff
Well,
up.
it's a reason that this fan base loved Josh McCown. It's the reason that this fan base didn't hate DTR last year. It's the reason this fan base embraced Jacoby Brissett, because they weren't great quarterbacks by any means, but I mean, we saw Josh McCown, his first drive ever for the Cleveland Browns, helicopter into the end zone and fumble away the ball on the first drive of the 2015 season. Yeah, but it's just plays like that where it's like, oh my God, are you kidding me? You get pissed, but it's also like, how can you be mad at that dude literally diving for the end zone to try to make a play for your team? So I think that's just, the mantra across, a lot of sports, but more so Cleveland specific. Everybody you talk to, we love a lot of crappy players in this town because of the effort that they give.
Yep. Effort and energy go a long way into invigorating yourself into a fan base.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
100%.
Speaking of someone who's doing his best to do that, it's time to talk about my guy. And now I'm happy. That's right. And I know there were a lot of preconceived notions about him in the draft, but boy, everything you read and hear, it's going on in Berea, and I'm not there every day anymore on a first, account basis. Everything you read and hear, the effort and the energy are there for that kid. And, obviously he was born with a silver spoon in his mouth. His father was prime. Everybody knows that. But telling his old man, stay away. This is my deal, my gig. Let me build on my own. And I really respect that. And I know you're not a fan, so it's easy for me to say that because obviously I'm a Shedeuer fanboy. Saw somebody the other day walking downtown with a Shedeuer jersey. I meant to tell you that.
I heard there were a couple too from friend of the show, Robbie Becker, that were at training camp.
Yeah, I believe it.
He sent us pictures of it.
So anyway, more importantly, how do you view that? You like to hear that kind of stuff? Because obviously you had your red flags and a lot of them about Shedeuer Sanders.
Yeah, and there's still red flags for me, but none of them have been how he's ever really, addressed the media, to be honest with you. Every question he's been asked, I actually think he's handled very well. They asked him about, are you in your head about you were the only quarterback today, I believe this was earlier this week, you were the only quarterback today that didn't get first-team reps. And he goes, why would that be a concern for me? The season hasn't even started yet. I'm still out here battling. I might get first-team reps tomorrow. I just got to keep that same mind space. Like, he's always answered very well since he's been drafted to the Browns.
And I thought a lot of the media gave him kudos for this. A lot of the Browns brass, or not Browns brass, Browns beat that's out there every day. We're all very impressed with this. The other day, Jerome Baker was speaking, veteran player, linebacker, probably going to have to play a lot now with the Jordan Hicks retirement and, JOK obviously not playing. Jerome Baker is going to be an important part of this football team this year. That's beside the point. Jerome Baker was talking, and a whole bunch of the media ran over because Shedeuer was standing at the other podium. And obviously, he draws the crowd and the attention, and they all ran over there, and somebody said, and, he didn't say anything. And they're like, well, is he not going to speak? What's going on? And the first question was, well, why didn't you, talk when you're at the podium? He goes, sign of respect. There's a veteran over there talking. You guys' attention should be with him until, because I'll begin when he's finished. And little things like that, I think, go a long way in an NFL locker room.
Yeah, but do you think that's all like part of like an act in order to appease to the fans and appease to or do you think that's genuinely who Shedeuer is?
I don't know. I think that's hard for me to say.
Yeah.
But so far, I mean, they seem to really, 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 the coaches and everybody have good things to say about him, and he's working hard, and, he's looked okay out there. Obviously, we're not going to get too crazy into the numbers. That's a stance we both have on this show. But you know what? Let's just put it this way. I'd rather that Shedeuer doing all this stuff than having a Johnny Manziel 2014 camp.
Oh, I 100% agree.
Right.
I couldn't agree more, yeah. So. And I think I saw a couple clips, kind of going to the other rookie quarterback in the room. From what I have seen on social media, I haven't been too impressed with what they've been putting out there with Dillon Gabriel, honestly. And I will say I've kind of been a little bit of a Dillon Gabriel apologist ever since the draft because everybody's been counting him out ever since he got drafted because 60, 65 picks later, whatever it was, Shedeuer Sanders, we take him. So the fan base immediately gravitated to him, so I've kind of been rooting for Dillon Gabriel. Even though he was drafted higher, he's definitely the underdog story right now in camp for sure in order to kind of overcome, I think, how the team views him and how the fan base views him as well. So
well, I think the team views him differently than the fan base.
Well, yeah, I was about to say. So I read a report that from the neck up, the Browns view him as like a first round pick. Basically,
right.
just mindset, the football IQ, and things like that. So how that translates to the field, the NFL field, we've yet to see. But it'll be interesting to see how this whole quarterback battle plays out.
Yeah, absolutely. And obviously, with Kenny Pickett going down, we don't know how long he's going to be out. Hamstrings could be, you never know. Hamstrings are very touchy. So do you think, and I'm going to ask you this, do you think this clears the way that Joe Flacco is officially the starting quarterback when they tighten the chin straps week 1 against Cincinnati?
I'm going to give an 80 to 85% chance that it's Flacco. I'm not going to say 100%, but I do think the path looks pretty nice for him to be the week 1 starter.
I agree, because I think it was always going to be between Kenny and Joe to start that week 1 game. I don't think Shedeuer and Dylan ever had a chance. And Stefanski and Barry don't say a lot. The Haslams spoke too. That from everything that everybody said, they're not going to directly come out and say it's only July 30th, but from everything everybody says, it's between Kenny and Joe. And if Kenny's unavailable, I think then by default it's Joe. Yeah,
I would agree. Now, like you said, hamstrings can be pretty unpredictable in terms of the time frame. So if Pickett's back and practicing in the next week, 2 weeks, and actually putting together good reps, obviously we could be having a conversation 2-3 weeks from now saying that it's 75% Pickett.
Well, I'll tell you what, the veterans who are still here from 2023, though, you could see they have that bond with Joe.
Yeah.
I saw the video of David Njoku and Joe hanging out today. You hear the way Miles talks about Joe, and that's understandable, because those guys who are here in 2023, Kevin, they only have positive and great memories, and
of course
of what Joe did. So
and Flacco came in, and I know you just alluded to it, but he saved the entire season for this team.
Right. So those guys are going to have nothing but great.
Right.
So I can understand the David Njoku's and Myles Garrett and Joel Batonios of the world.
Yeah. And I've heard Flacco is great in that locker room.
Yeah, absolutely. And those guys, they've been through so much losing football because they've been here for so long. So, one of the few years that they had to celebrate, it was all Joe Flacco was a huge part of it. So I can understand all those guys being partial towards Joe Flacco being the starting quarterback.
Yeah, I agree.
Let's talk about a guy who wasn't here, man. Mason Graham, just rave reviews coming out of camp for that kid, huh?
Yeah, and I saw that video of him. If you haven't, I recommend looking it up. But his rep against Wyatt Teller a couple days ago was fantastic. He got to the quarterback what seemed like in 2 seconds. And if we're getting that from the interior, and Wyatt Teller's no slouch, obviously, he's not what he was, 2 years ago, even 3 years ago for this team, but he's still an above average, I'd say top 10 right guard in the game, honestly. And Mason Graham's putting together some fantastic reps against him. It's got to get you excited.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, well, it is time for the odds and ends part of our program, and we don't have all that much here today to offer because we covered pretty much everything we wanted to. A couple big trades in the MLB. Brian Hayes going in division from Pirates to Reds. I can't view this as much other from the outside than a salary dump. And Brian Hayes, again, very much like Steven Kwan. Yes, he signed a long-term extension. I know his bat wasn't always great, but he's under control for very cheap, and they trade him to the Reds. I don't know.
I think it's interesting, and it's a very interesting in-division trade, and I think the Reds absolutely hosed the Pirates in this. And to dump somebody, and obviously Brian Hayes, he's never going to be the 280 hitter that's going to hit 20 to 30 bombs every year, but he's a fantastic fielder. I compare him to the likes of, honestly, like an Andres Jimenez type of deal, of where he gives you the fielding.
And I think he's a little more at the plate.
I was about to say he's definitely got a better bat, or more consistent bat than Jimenez, even though he's probably going to always bat a little bit below 250. I think it's a fantastic addition to that Reds lineup. You plug him in probably 6 through 9, one of those spots, and just kind of see what happens with him at the plate, and then you get the amazing fielding. So, fantastic deal for the Reds. And the Reds, who aren't in too opposite of a spot than the Guardians, they're going for it.
They're going for it. You always got to respect when teams do that.
Yep.
The Angels I saw traded for a couple relievers. They very much they are the poster child of have no clue what they're ever doing. I mean, they literally are just a dumpster fire. I mean, I guess I can understand in one of Trout's last year's trying to go for it, but do you really think you have the team to go for it?
I just think it's hilarious when at one point they had the 2 best clear players in baseball, and they never made a playoff push.
No.
Ever.
And then the Mets just unloading prospects for relievers. Boy, are they building the best bullpen in baseball, though, because now you're going to go Helsley, Ryan Helsley, who
Right,
we
Helsley.
made mention to a couple of
Edwin
times.
Diaz.
Edwin Diaz, and then also getting Tyler Rogers, which I thought was interesting. The Giants trading both twin brothers today. Tyler Rogers got traded from the Giants to the Mets for a haul of prospects, and then Taylor Rogers, who the Giants used to have, they traded him to the Reds this past offseason. Then he went to Pittsburgh in the Brian Hayes deal.
Interesting.
So interesting, both twin brothers get traded. But boy, the Mets, 3 prospects for each. And Kevin, this goes back to what you said at the beginning of the show, maybe why they wanted to move Clase, because relievers are getting moved for a higher price than I remember in a long, long time.
Yeah, no, they absolutely are, and obviously it comes back and hurts the try. But this isn't really a stranger to. We gave up years ago. We gave up one of the top catching prospects. He never really amounted to anything. But Francisco Mejia dealt him for Brad Hand. Clint Frazier was a big time prospect. Dealt him for Andrew Miller. So we've always kind of seen this trend of relievers getting sold for very high end prospects. Now whether those prospects turn into something, obviously we don't know because they're called prospects.
Called prospects for a reason. Prospects are suspects until proven otherwise. I remember a very wise old person told me that one time.
And they were right.
Yep, they are right about that. It's a great saying. Another thing, and to your point about, trading so much for relievers, though, if you want to go for it in the postseason, though, what wins in the postseason? Great bullpens and putting the ball over the fence are the 2 things that get you to where you need to go. Because the pitchers are just simply too good to string a bunch of hits against. You got to be able to put the ball over the fence.
Yeah, and I think, honestly, you can look back at last year's Guardians team and say if they had another power bat in there, they might have been able to actually put on a run.
Right.
Because they had the pitching, they had the bullpen.
Yep, 3 wins away from the World Series, but going to a full-on rebuild.
Let's sell.
Yep, sell. We hope the Dolans do. The team didn't, but it looks like it's going to be the opposite. I think that, we'll see what happens. Hopefully we don't have Kwan news to react to next week, but my gut feeling tells me we will.
Same.
And I don't know what else. Maybe most likely
if a Kwan deal was gonna happen, I wish it would have happened either during or before this, so we could have analyzed it and not wait a full week to talk about it.
Yeah, it's gonna be frustrating. I don't see any way that Bieber's still here. We talked about that too. I just don't see it happening. So, all right. Well, if you enjoyed this, you like more of what you got tonight, then like and subscribe. Give a thumbs up for your boys on the 1s and 2s here, and turn those notifications on to be able to know when we drop a new episode every Thursday morning. Derek has it for you there at 8:00 a.m. And you can also follow and engage with us on social media. That's at CLE Sports Realm. The boys here, we're available for you on TikTok. We're on the X, and we're on the Instagram as well. And then, of course, you can get this podcast, Kevin, where? Please tell them.
You can get this podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and YouTube.
Yes, and we're available in video form on YouTube and Spotify.
Yeah.
So
flip around the camera then.
Yeah, flip around. If you don't like seeing us, well then there's always the audio version available for you too.
Exactly. Put the headphones on.
Derek, thanks for everything and overcoming those technical difficulties we had at the beginning. There's no one in the business like you.
No one better.
And we appreciate your work. That's it. We'll talk to you next week. Kevin, anything else? Last word from you.
Yeah, I'm going to say, because we didn't talk about him at all today, and it's been a while since we've had a segment on him, go Cavs.
All right. Talk to you next week.